Hey y'all, what's up? How's it going? I am Jaxident prone, and I am trans. That's right, we're getting personal in this episode, or this video, I guess. It's not really an episode if I don't really have a set series going on. I know I said I was going to talk about Richard Kelly's whole script, and I'm working on that video right now. I'm actually in the process of editing it. But the holidays are coming up. Or I guess we're smack dab in the middle of them, because Hanukkah's happening right now, Yule's happening right now, where it's Christmas Adam, which is, of course, what comes before Christmas Eve and is generally disappointing as I'm recording this. But this time of year always has me thinking about my journey and how far that I have come, because I initially started testosterone in November of 2016, which we all remember what happened then. In November of 2016. It's recently come to my attention that there are a lot of people in my life who don't know that I'm trans unless I actively tell them. Like, I've worked with coworkers for a couple of weeks. Like, my work is expanding so much right now, and I'll just casually mention something like, oh yeah, when I first started transitioning, or something like back when I was in Girl Scouts, they'll usually look at me like, wait, what? Like, they're genuinely confused when I tell them I'm trans, and this has absolutely not always been the case. People hear my voice on the phone, even still to this day sometimes, and they immediately go, oh, hi, ma'am, or something like that. I always assume that, like, my voice is a dead giveaway that I'm trans, but apparently not. I also think my height is a dead giveaway as well, but I guess short men are kind of a thing that exists. Regardless of whether you're cis or trans, it's valid to be short. I need to remind myself of that. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of my transition timeline up to today, and how I being trans currently affects my everyday life. So, I initially came out as non-binary in, I want to say, 2014. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship, and I wound up in the hospital. I quickly made friends with this transgender man who was also in there as a patient, and we got to talking a lot, and I had spent this entire relationship wrapped up in the other person to the point where I had lost my own identity, which I just got out of a very similar situation as well, but that's not the time or place. And that relationship, I just didn't know who I was. And when it ended, I didn't know who I was, so it all came crashing down, and I shut down, and that's when I went to the hospital. I was kind of talking to he kind of could sense my inner turmoil that I was having, and he started kind of, wait, I shouldn't say his name, that violates HIPAA. I'll edit that out. This gentleman, who I will not say his name anymore, was kind of asking me questions about how I felt about my own gender identity, just kind of like these that are a little open-ended, that really make the person want to give more detailed answers, if that makes sense. I don't remember what exactly I had said, because this was a weird point in my life. My memory is kind of blurry about it. I just remember him saying something along the lines of, you know, I used to feel that way too. And that was kind of when it clicked, like, fuck. You know, when a bottle of soda is just shaken up, and then it's just sat down. When he said, you know, I used to feel like that too, that was unscrewing the cap. And there was a big explosion of realization. And now that it was all over everything, I couldn't put it back in the bottle. It was too late. I'm really glad that I had my aha moment while I was already at a really low point in my life, already hospitalized. Because from that point, there was really nowhere to go but up. Got out of the hospital. Hold on, I'm gonna heat up the car a little bit more real quick. And I'm gonna throw on a pullover as well. So from there was really nowhere to go but up. So I get out of the hospital, and that's when I start slowly coming out to my friends. Because most of the friends that I have at this point in my life are very loving and accepting and are gonna do everything in their power to make sure that I feel supported and loved. I got really lucky in the friend department. Most of these people have been around since I was like 14 years old. We've all been through high school together, and we're all still close. And it's just a really good group of people that I'm very lucky to have. So I had no issue coming out to them. They all immediately started using the correct name, the correct pronouns. There was maybe one or two who didn't take it well. One was unfortunately wrapped up in strong TERF ideology at the time, which is trans-exclusionary radical feminists. And the other could not move past their religion. The one who was a TERF no longer feels that way. They came forward years later and apologized to me and realized that they had their own internal issues with gender that they were trying to sort out. And now we're friends again. Obviously, they do not believe that rhetoric anymore. They've been deprogrammed from the TERF cult, which is great. So I have that friend back at least. The other one, who knows? Time will tell. Coming out to my friends wasn't the issue. The next big step was coming out to my family. I want to preface this with saying that right now, my family is incredibly supportive. They are my biggest allies. I am very fortunate to be a trans man with the family that I have. I do not know very many other trans people who genuinely have a good relationship with their family the way I do. But, with that being said, it has not always been that way. When I first came out and I asked to be called Jax and to use gender-neutral pronouns, my family, they were confused, and that confusion came out as shock and anger. So, we were not the best at expressing our emotions at the time. There was a lot of yelling, and I left to just take a drive and get away and cool off for a little bit. And then when I came back, we just didn't talk about it again until I was moving out. And I was moving out to live with my, at the time, girlfriend, now my ex-wife, still one of my best friends, one of my biggest supporters. She's probably subscribed to this channel. If you are, hi Cassie. We were moving in together, and I sat down with my family and I was like, look, I don't care what you do here, but you know how you always said your house, your rules? Well, my house, my rules. If you're gonna come over, you're gonna call me Jax. You're gonna call me by they, them. Which, at the time, I exclusively used they, them. Now I use they and he. I basically use any pronouns that aren't she. But in my professional life, I use he because it's just easier to say I'm a trans man than it is to explain Gender 101 to every single cis person I meet, you know? And they cried. We had a serious talk about it with a lot less yelling, but I think having that talk was essential in them becoming the most supportive family that anyone could ask for. My little sister went from Jax isn't even a name to making sure that her baby knows me as Uncle Jax. My dad went from let's not tell your grandma you're trans because it would send her into shock to my son is trans. If you're not comfortable with him being trans, I'm not going to force him to come to Christmas. And I might not come either. And that's the first time he's ever stood up to his mom for me. My mom went from, I just can't call you anything but she or your dead name, to leaving her job to find a new one because she wasn't comfortable dead naming and misgendering me anymore. Even my granny. Even when my granny is talking to my dog and my cat, she'll say, "Okay, go see your daddy." I'm sorry. They've come so far. All of them. After that conversation, that was when they realized this is serious. If we don't try, we're going to lose our kid. So they started trying. And as they started trying, I got more comfortable with myself. And they got more comfortable with everything. And eventually, while my ex-wife, girlfriend at the time, were out on a road trip, just having a good time, I was flipping through Snapchat. This was the first time that those gender swap filters or whatever came out. I'll post the picture of the snap that I took, because I took a picture of me and I literally thought, oh my god, the square jaw, the facial hair, that's what I'm supposed to look like. Seeing that Snapchat filter was a turning moment for me. I had been on the fence about going on testosterone at this point. I was discussing it with my therapist for a few months, weighing the pros and the cons. And I was already kind of leaning towards it, because she had asked me where I saw myself in 5 years and what that version of myself looked like. And I was thinking long and hard about that, and then I saw that Snapchat filter. And I thought, that's me. And in my next therapy session, I told my therapist, I want to go on testosterone. I want to overcome my fear of needles. I want to look more masculine. I want to gain muscle. I want a beard. Little me was always so envious of people who could grow beards. And I think I was about 9 or 10 when I realized that I would never be able to grow one. And I just sat there and cried. I mean, you all saw how long my beard was in my first video. Like, I've been on testosterone for about 6 years now. I had my top surgery in April of 2018 with a surgeon in Kansas City named Dr. Carol Ann Aylward. If you are willing to make the trip to Kansas City, I do strongly recommend her. I cannot sing her praises enough. I'm not sponsored by her in any way. I mean, I don't have any sponsors. I have 19 subscribers, and this is literally my 3rd video. Which, Jax, why are you making a personal video for your 3rd video? Because it's my channel and I do what I want. Which apparently involves crying in front of 19 people. Dr. Aylward. So she did my top surgery in April of 2018. And I have no recollection of this. This is what I am told by my ex-wife what happened. I was getting wheeled out of surgery, and as I was starting to wake up. Now, bear in mind, at this time, I used to work at my local humane society, and part of my job consisted of going to retrieve dogs and cats from the veterinary hospital side of the shelter who had just been spayed or neutered, and bringing them back to their kennels to recover. And we referred to this process as getting the surgery dogs. I apparently wake up practically shooting up, which you're really not supposed to do when you have 2 very fresh incisions in your chest. And I go, oh no, I'm supposed to get the surgery dogs. And the nurse looks at me kind of like touching my shoulder and she goes, no, Jax, you're the surgery dog today. And I just go, oh. And I kind of pause for a moment and then I look at her and I go, so how many times have you heard the I'm so glad I got that off my chest joke? And she busts up laughing and says, never. Now, here's what I do remember. I remember sitting up in my bed in the recovery room, hearing a nurse saying, he's doing really great. He's cracking jokes and talking about dogs. And I thought to myself, well, she's got to be talking about me. And then like 3 seconds later, my ex-wife walks into the room. So that's what I remember. I also remember seeing a ghost at the Airbnb that I was staying in to recover in Independence, but maybe I'll save that for another video, because that's not necessarily related to my transition. It's just something buck wild that happened to me while I was recovering. I'm still not over it. Really, at this point in my life, the only steps left that I have that I want to take of my transition. I don't want phalloplasty. Phalloplasty, as it is right now, involves a skin graft that I am simply not willing to do. If you are a trans man who has had phalloplasty or is considering phalloplasty, kudos to you. You are stronger than I am. I can't do it. Plus, I'm a bottom. I have no need for it. I'm horrible. Why did I say that on YouTube? The only steps that I really have left of my transition are a hysterectomy, which, even if I wasn't transitioning, I'm gonna need anyway. I have had horrible menstrual cramps from the time that I was like 11 years old. I have no desire to have biological children, or at least give birth to children. Childbirth is actually one of my biggest fears. So, if I am pregnant, I will probably just explode with anxiety. But that's not to say I don't want kids. I would love to adopt children or foster, or what I really want to do is adopt a queer or trans child who was kicked out of their home so that they can have loving and supportive grandparents and a dad that understands them. That's my main goal. If I were to be a dad. But who knows if that's in the cards for me or not. Time will tell. Plus, my uterus and ovaries give me so much physical pain still to this day from ages. Oh my god, it's been 20 years that I've been dealing with this shit. I've literally wanted a hysterectomy for 20 years. And it still hasn't happened. Not for lack of trying. Believe me, I'm pretty sure I've been trying to get a hysterectomy since longer than I've been transitioning. But that's the only medical milestone that I have left. The only social milestone that I have left, because literally at this point, everybody in my life calls me Jax. Everybody in my life calls me either he or they, or switches it up between the two. All that's left is my grandparents. The only times that they have seen me in person since my transition began, I've been clean-shaven because that was my ex-wife's preference, which explains a lot because we split up because we are both too gay to be in a straight passing relationship. That's why we're still such really good friends. It's ultimate MLM WLW solidarity. My grandparents seeing me with a beard is the last social milestone that I have left. And my dad, like I mentioned earlier, just now told my grandparents, like 6 years or so into my transition, that my name is Jax, that my pronouns are he or they, that I have a beard, that I no longer have breasts. And at first, it looked like it was going well. They said that they could play nice at Christmas time, and then suddenly they changed their minds. So, we'll see how that goes. But that's how my transition has gone personally. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is I wanted to bring up that I am trans before I started making this particular series of videos that I really want to make. I call it Transcestors. It goes over some of the older trans folks that maybe we didn't get to know about, maybe who didn't get to live their full authentic lives, bringing these people visibility, whether or not they had it in their lives. I want to make sure that they have it in their afterlives. So if you have any suggestions for someone you would like me to make a Transcestors video about, so far on my list I have Harry Allen, Dr. James Barry, and Lou Alcott, who you may know as Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women. Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting video. I literally just found out about Lou, like, this week. It was actually my ex-wife who told me, and I was like, oh man, now I have to launch the Transcestors videos. Like, I have to make one about Lou. Like, there's so much evidence for him. And then, of course, there's Dr. James Barry, who... his story is so cool. He is one of the most badass men of all time, whether or not he is cis or trans. And then there's Harry Allen, who is known for being a rough and tumble kind of guy. But obviously this isn't exclusive to trans men. I want to hear from you, any trans women, especially any trans women of color, or non-binary people, especially non-binary people of color. I want to make sure that I'm not just highlighting white trans men like me. I want to make sure the whole spectrum is covered. I want to make sure that trans stories are told by a trans person. That's it. I want to tell stories about trans people. And I think I'm going to focus a little more on that. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be doing some of my goofy, silly videos. Don't get me wrong. I'm still working on the whole script video, like, right now. It is being edited. But I've been reflecting a lot on being trans lately, and I want to use that to highlight other trans people. I want trans kids to know that they're not alone. I want closeted people to know you don't have to be afraid. Obviously, come out on your own terms, but you don't have to be afraid. Yeah. I don't really know how to end this. I'm gonna have that Holes video up soon, hopefully, and after that, I'm gonna get to work on talking about Lou Alcott. And then Dr. James Barry. And then Harry Allen. And then anyone else that you'd like me to talk about. So, in the meantime, I am Jaxident Prone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.